News of the impossible victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On space stations and colony worlds, humans gathered around communication screens to watch recordings of the battle. The footage showed 4 battered human ships defeating 12 advanced Dominion vessels using weapons made from spare parts and pure determination. Captain Taman stood on the bridge of the damaged Persistence, reading reports from across human space. His ship was barely holding together, but it was still flying. That seemed to be a perfect symbol for humanity itself. "Captain," said Subin from her communication station, "I'm receiving messages from every human colony in this sector. They want to know how we did it. They want copies of the archive data." "Send it to everyone," said Taman. "This information belongs to all humanity." Mi Young was working to repair the ship's damaged systems, but she looked up from her work. "Dad's right. The old Earth Defense Forces didn't fight for just one ship or one colony. They fought for the entire human species. On distant worlds, human engineers studied the ancient weapons designs. Human pilots practiced the tactical maneuvers that had saved the Persistence. Human soldiers trained with kinetic weapons and electromagnetic pulse generators. For the first time in decades, humans were learning to fight back. Admiral Kethvar survived the battle, but his career was over. The Dominion High Command could not understand how their most advanced fleet had been defeated by primitive humans. Kethvar tried to explain, but his superiors did not want to hear about human unpredictability or the power of determination. "You lost 12 ships to 4 human vessels," said Supreme Commander Velthar, the highest-ranking military officer in the Dominion. "This is unacceptable." "Supreme Commander, you do not understand," said Kethvar. "These humans fight differently than any species we have encountered. They use their limitations as strengths. They turn their desperation into weapons. Excuses. You will be transferred to a training facility where you will study proper military tactics." But across the Dominion, other military leaders were studying the battle recordings with growing concern. The humans had revealed capabilities that no one suspected. More importantly, they had shown other species that the Dominion could be defeated. On the mining world of Kepler-7, human workers stopped production and demanded better treatment from their alien supervisors. On the trade station of New Geneva, human merchants refused to accept unfavorable contracts. Throughout the galaxy, humans were standing up for themselves. Captain Bora Nam of the mining ship Endurance found herself appointed as the leader of a new human defense force. Her ship had been badly damaged in the battle, but she was already planning improvements based on the archive data. "We can't just defend ourselves," she told a gathering of human captains. "We need to take back the colonies we lost. We need to show the galaxy that humanity is done being pushed around." Captain Kyung-Soo Lim of the Transport Resilience had converted his ship into a mobile training platform. He traveled from colony to colony, teaching other crews how to modify their vessels for combat. The techniques were spreading rapidly. "The beautiful thing about human technology," he explained to a group of engineers, "is that it's simple enough to understand and tough enough to survive. We don't need perfect components. We just need components that work." Back on the Persistence, Wanho had been treating the wounded from the battle, but he had also been studying the medical data from the archive. He discovered that human biology gave them advantages in combat that other species lacked. "Our ancestors were persistence hunters," he told Timon. "They could chase prey for hours until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. We inherited that ability. We can keep fighting long after other species would give up. Is that why we won the battle? Partly, but it's also because humans are used to making do with less. Every other species in the galaxy evolved on worlds with abundant resources. Earth was harsh. We learned to survive with whatever we could find." Jeho had become something of a celebrity pilot. Young humans across the galaxy were studying recordings of his flying during the battle. Flight schools were teaching new courses based on his techniques. "The key is not to fly like a computer," he told his students. "Computers calculate the safest path. Humans find the path that works, even if it's dangerous." Meanwhile, the Dominion was struggling to respond to the changing situation. Other alien species were watching to see how they would handle the human uprising. Some species were secretly pleased to see the Dominion humbled. Others were worried about their own human populations. Supreme Commander Velthar called an emergency meeting of the Dominion leadership. The conference room was filled with representatives from a dozen alien species, all concerned about the implications of the human victory. "The situation is contained," Velthar announced. One lucky battle does not change the balance of power in this galaxy. But Fleet Admiral Zethkol, a veteran military strategist, disagreed. Supreme Commander, this was not luck. The humans demonstrated tactical innovations that our computers could not predict. They used weapons we did not know they possessed. Most importantly, they fought with a level of determination that our species cannot match. Are you suggesting that humans are superior to us? I am suggesting that humans are different from us. They evolved in a harsh environment that rewarded stubbornness and creativity. We evolved in stable environments that rewarded cooperation and efficiency. In most situations, our approach is better. But in combat, their approach may be more effective. The debate continued for hours, but no clear strategy emerged. Some Dominion leaders wanted to attack human colonies immediately, before they could spread their new weapons technology. Others argued for negotiation and compromise. A few suggested that the Dominion should avoid human space entirely. While the Dominion argued, humans continued to prepare. The archive data had revealed more than just weapons designs. It contained information about alien psychology, tactical analysis, and strategic planning. Humans were learning not just how to fight, but how to think about fighting. Taemin received a communication from the human colony of New Shanghai. The governor wanted him to come and speak to their defense council. Similar invitations were arriving from dozens of worlds. They want to hear from the captain who proved that humans could win, said Subin. It wasn't just me, said Taemin. It was all of us. And it was our ancestors who left us the tools we needed. But you made the decision to fight instead of run. That's what people remember. Mi Young had finished her analysis of the battle data. Captain, I've been studying what happened during the fight. The Dominion made a crucial mistake. They assumed we would behave logically. When we didn't, their entire tactical system broke down. What does that tell us? It tells us that we have an advantage we didn't know about. Other species have become too dependent on predictable behavior. Humans are naturally unpredictable. We can use that. The Persistence limped into the New Shanghai system 3 weeks after the battle. The ship was still patched and scarred, but it was flying under its own power. As they approached the colony, Taemin was amazed to see dozens of other ships waiting for them. They're all human vessels, said Hyojin, checking her sensors. And they're all armed. The ships had been modified according to the archive data. Mining vessels carried kinetic weapons. Transport ships mounted electromagnetic pulse generators. Even civilian craft had improvised defenses. This is Captain Park of the Persistence, came a voice over the communicator. Welcome to the New Shanghai Defense Fleet. We're ready to follow your lead. Taemin looked around his bridge at his tired but determined crew. They had started this journey as a simple salvage operation. Now they found themselves at the center of a human revolution. All ships, he said into his communicator. This is Captain Taemin Park. We didn't come here to start a war. We came here to prove that humans don't have to accept defeat. We've done that. Now it's up to all of us to decide what comes next. Across the galaxy, other species were also deciding what came next. The humans had changed the rules of the game. The old assumptions about technological superiority and military dominance were no longer reliable. In the Dominion capital, Supreme Commander Velthar stared at intelligence reports showing human military preparations throughout the galaxy. The species they had dismissed as primitive was organizing, arming itself, and preparing for war. Perhaps, said Fleet Admiral Zethkol, we should consider the possibility that we have underestimated humans for too long. Velthar did not respond. He was too busy wondering if the Dominion had just awakened something it could not control. On the bridge of the Persistence, Taemin looked out at the stars and thought about the future. The battle had been won, but the war was just beginning. Humanity had found its strength, but now it would have to learn how to use that strength wisely. What do you think happens next, Dad? Asked Subin. I think the galaxy is about to learn why it's dangerous to corner a species that evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day, said Taemin. And I think we're about to show everyone what humans can do when we stop pretending to be weak. The stars ahead seemed brighter somehow, full of possibilities that had not existed before the battle. Humanity was no longer the galaxy's victim. The Dominion fleet emerged from hyperspace like 12 bright stars appearing in the darkness. Admiral Kethvar stood on his bridge, watching the tactical display with confidence. His ships formed a perfect attack formation, their energy shields glowing with power. Begin the attack, he ordered. Target the largest human vessel first. Disable their engines but preserve the ship. We need that archive data intact. The Sovereign's Wrath and its escort ships moved forward with deadly precision, their plasma cannons charged with blue fire. Energy shields shimmered around their hulls like protective bubbles. On the Persistence, Captain Tayman watched the approaching fleet. His ship looked like a piece of junk compared to the sleek Dominion vessels, but appearances could be deceiving. "All ships, this is Captain Park," he said into his communicator. "Remember the plan. Wait for my signal." The 4 human vessels spread out in what looked like a desperate attempt to avoid being destroyed together. The Persistence moved slowly, as if its engines were struggling. The mining ship Endurance drifted behind an asteroid. The transport Resilience seemed to be trying to run away. The freighter Defiance appeared to be having engine problems. "The humans are scattering," reported Kethvar's tactical officer. "They have no coordinated strategy." As expected, primitive species rarely fight with discipline. "Target the cargo vessel." The lead Dominion ships opened fire. Plasma bolts shot through space toward the Persistence. The crew braced for impact, but Jeho suddenly threw the ship into a wild spiral. The plasma bolts passed harmlessly by. "Impossible," said Kethavar. "No ship that size should be able to maneuver like that." Mi-Young smiled grimly as she watched her engine modifications work perfectly. "That's because you've never seen a human pilot flying a ship that's held together by determination and welding wire." The Persistence continued its erratic flight pattern, dodging plasma fire that should have destroyed it easily. The Dominion ships adjusted their aim, but Jeho seemed to know where they would shoot before they did. "Now," whispered Taymin. The Persistence suddenly stopped running and turned toward the nearest Dominion ship. At the same time, it launched what looked like chunks of debris from its cargo bays. "They're throwing garbage at us," laughed one of Kethvar's officers. But the laughter stopped when the first kinetic projectile hit. The metal chunk, accelerated to incredible speed by the magnetic launchers, punched straight through the Dominion ship's energy shield. It tore a hole in the hull and sent the vessel spinning out of control. "Shields down on the Valor," reported the tactical officer, his voice shocked. "How did they penetrate our defenses?" Before Kethvar could answer, the other human ships revealed their own surprises. The mining vessel Endurance emerged from behind the asteroid and launched modified mining charges. The explosion scattered electromagnetic pulse waves that scrambled the computers. On 2 more Dominion ships, the transport Resilience dropped its disguise of running away and fired improvised weapons, made from cargo handling equipment. Heavy containers shot through space like cannonballs, denting the hull of another Dominion vessel. "All ships engage the humans," ordered Kethvar. "Use maximum firepower." But the Dominion fleet was discovering something their computers had not predicted. The human ships were not fighting like any enemy they had faced before. Instead of standing their ground and trading shots, they moved in chaotic patterns that made no logical sense. The Persistence dove under a Dominion ship and fired its kinetic weapons into the vessel's unshielded belly. The mining ship used its industrial equipment to grab onto an enemy vessel and then detonate charges directly against the hull. The transport ship released clouds of metal debris that jammed sensors and disrupted targeting systems. "Sir," said the weapons officer, "our computers cannot predict their movements. They are not following any known tactical patterns." Jeho threw the Persistence into a spin that would have torn apart most ships. But Mi-Young's modifications held together, and they emerged behind a Dominion vessel that had been trying to target them. "Take this," said Dongwu as he fired a full spread of kinetic rounds. The projectiles hammered into the enemy ship's engines, sending it tumbling away helplessly. On the Endurance, Captain Bo-Ra Nam guided her mining ship between 2 Dominion vessels. "Let's see how you handle a controlled explosion," she said, detonating charges that damaged both enemy ships at once. The battle that should have lasted 5 minutes was now entering its second hour. 3 Dominion ships were severely damaged. 2 were completely disabled. But the humans were also paying a price. The freighter Defiance had taken heavy damage and was barely holding together. "This is impossible," said Kethvar, staring at his tactical display. "They are using primitive weapons against advanced technology. It should not work." "Admiral," said his communications officer, "I am detecting more human ships approaching. They appear to be reinforcements." On the edge of the battle, civilian ships were arriving. They carried families and workers who had heard about the fight. Most could not participate in combat, but their presence seemed to inspire the human fighters. "Dad," said Subin from her communications station. "I'm getting messages from all over human space. Word is spreading about what we're doing here. Other colonies are watching." Taemin ducked as another plasma bolt passed over the bridge. "Then we better make sure they see us win." Mi Young had been monitoring the Dominion communications. "Captain, their ships are trying to coordinate with their computers, but our EMP bursts keep disrupting their systems. They're not used to fighting without computer assistance." "That's the difference," said Wanho, helping to repair a damaged console. "We learned to work with broken equipment." They learned to depend on perfect technology. The Persistence lined up for another attack run. This time their target was Admiral Kethavar's flagship, the Sovereign's Wrath. It was the largest and most powerful ship in the Dominion fleet, but it was also the most dependent on its advanced systems. All human ships. "Concentrate fire on the flagship," ordered Taemin. "Use everything we have." The 4 surviving human vessels converged on the Sovereign's Wrath from different directions. Kinetic rounds, mining charges, improvised projectiles, and electromagnetic pulses all struck the massive ship at once. Kethavar felt his flagship shudder under the impact. "Shields are failing," reported his tactical officer. "Multiple hull breaches. Computer systems are experiencing widespread malfunctions. How is this possible? We have superior technology in every category." "Yes, sir, but they are not fighting with technology. They are fighting with—" The officer paused, struggling to find the right words. "They are fighting with something else." Through the bridge windows, Kethavar could see the human ships. They were battered and scarred, held together with patches and improvised repairs. They should have been destroyed hours ago, but they kept fighting, kept finding new ways to attack, kept refusing to surrender. "What are they?" he whispered. On the Persistence, Mi Young was working frantically to keep their weapons operational. The ship was taking heavy damage, but every system had multiple backups. When the primary weapons failed, they switched to secondary weapons. When those failed, they used emergency systems. When everything else failed, they improvised. "Humans," she said to herself as she rerouted power through a cable that was never meant to carry that much electricity. "We don't know when to quit." The battle reached its climax as the Sovereign's Wrath attempted to ram the Persistence. The massive Dominion ship, its computers failing and its weapons damaged, tried to use brute force to end the fight. But Jeho was ready. He had been studying the archive data on human pilots from the old wars. They had faced similar situations before. "Hold on," he said, and threw the Persistence into a maneuver that no sane pilot would ever attempt. The ship flipped end over end, passing underneath the Sovereign's Wrath with only meters to spare. As they passed, Dongwu fired every remaining kinetic round directly into the flagship's main reactor. The explosion lit up space like a small star. When the light faded, the Sovereign's Wrath was drifting powerless, its hull cracked and its systems dead. For a moment, space was quiet. Then Subin's voice broke the silence. "Dad, we did it. The Dominion fleet is retreating. The remaining ships are pulling back." Taemin could hardly believe it. They had won. 4 human ships using weapons made from spare parts and tactics learned from ancient archives had defeated 12 advanced alien vessels. But the cost had been high. The Defiance was gone, destroyed in the final exchange. The other ships were badly damaged. Many crew members were injured. "It's not over yet," said Mi Young, pointing at her sensors. "More Dominion ships are on their way. We might have won this battle, but the war is just beginning." Taemin nodded, but for the first time in years he felt hope. Humanity had proved something important today. They had shown the galaxy that advanced technology was not everything. Sometimes the will to fight was more important than the weapons you carried. Admiral Kethavar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Sovereign's Wrath. He was tall and thin with gray skin and 4 arms. His species, the Valerians, had ruled this part of space for 300 years. They were proud of their advanced technology and military power. The bridge around him was perfect. Smooth walls glowed with soft blue light. Holographic displays showed information without any solid screens. Everything was clean and efficient. The Valerians believed that primitive species like humans were beneath them. "Admiral," said his communications officer, a female Valerian named Zethara, "we have confirmed the location of the human vessel. It remains near the old archive site." Kethavar's 3 eyes focused on the tactical display, 1 small human ship alone in space. It looked like scrap metal compared to his fleet. 12 advanced warships, each one capable of destroying 100 human vessels. "Foolish humans," he said in his cold voice. They have no idea what they have found. That archive contains information that could upset the balance of power in this galaxy. We cannot allow primitive species to possess such knowledge. Shall we destroy them immediately upon arrival? Asked his weapons officer. No, first we give them a chance to surrender. The Dominion prefers to avoid unnecessary killing, but if they refuse, we will take what we need from their wreckage. Kethvar had fought humans before. They were weak, technologically backward, and scattered across many worlds. Their ships were slow and their weapons were crude. Most other species in the galaxy agreed that humans were not a real threat to anyone, but the Valerians remembered the old stories. Long ago, their ancestors had fought a species that looked very much like these humans. The war had been difficult and many Valerians had died, but that was ancient history. These modern humans were nothing like their ancestors. Meanwhile, on the Persistence, Captain Taymeen gathered his crew in the small meeting room. The walls were covered with printed pages from the archive. Diagrams, weapon designs, and tactical plans covered every surface. All right, said Taymeen. Mi-Young has been studying the old data. Tell us what you found. Mi-Young stood up and pointed to a large diagram. The Earth Defense Forces faced a similar situation 200 years ago. The Velkari hegemony had better ships, better weapons, better everything. But humans won by using what they called asymmetric warfare. What does that mean? Asked Dongwu. It means fighting differently than your enemy expects. The aliens had energy shields that could stop any normal weapon. But human kinetic weapons worked differently. Solid metal moving really fast could punch right through their shields. Heejin looked confused. But we don't have kinetic weapons. Actually, we do, said Mi-Young with a smile. Every piece of metal on this ship can be a kinetic weapon if you accelerate it fast enough. And I found something else. The archive contains data on something called electromagnetic pulse warfare. Basically, human ships could create electrical bursts that would scramble alien computers. Our computers would get scrambled too, pointed out Dongwu. Not if we shield them properly, and not if we use manual controls as backup. The archive has plans for EMP-resistant systems that humans developed during the war. Taymeen studied the diagrams. How long would it take to modify our ship? Working around the clock? Maybe 36 hours. But Captain, even with these modifications, we're still just one ship against 12. The odds are impossible. Our ancestors faced impossible odds too, said Taymeen. But they had something their enemies didn't expect. They had the will to keep fighting when anyone sensible would give up. Subin Park, Taymeen's daughter, spoke up from the communication station. She was 28 years old, with her father's stubborn expression and her mother's quick mind. Dad, I've been monitoring human communications in this sector. There are other ships out there. Miners, traders, transport vessels. Maybe we can warn them about what's coming. Good idea. Send out a general broadcast. Tell them about the Dominion fleet and what we found in the archive. Some of them might want to help. But Captain, said Wan Ho-Yu, the ship's medic. He was a quiet man who usually stayed in the medical bay. These other ships are just civilians. They're not warships. Neither are we, said Taymeen. But sometimes civilians have to fight anyway. The crew went to work immediately. Mi-Young tore apart the ship's systems and began rebuilding them according to the ancient plans. Dongwu helped her install new electromagnetic generators in the weapon bays. Heejin programmed the navigation computer with new tactical patterns. Subin sent messages to every human ship in the sector. Most didn't respond. A few sent back angry replies telling her to stop bothering them with crazy stories, but some listened. A mining ship called the Endurance. A transport vessel named the Resilience. A few others. They're scared, Subin told her father, but some of them are angry too. They're tired of being pushed around by alien species who think they're better than us. 24 hours later, the Dominion fleet was much closer. Kethvar opened a communication channel to the Persistence. His image appeared on their main screen, looking down at them with contempt. Human vessel, I am Admiral Kethvar of the Valerian Dominion. You have taken something that does not belong to you. Surrender the archive data immediately, and we will allow you to live. Taymeen stepped in front of the camera. His uniform was dirty from helping with the ship modifications. His face was tired but determined. Admiral, this is Captain Taymeen Park. That archive belongs to humanity. It's our history, our technology, our heritage. We won't give it up. Kethavar's three eyes showed surprise. You would choose death over submission? How primitive, very well. You have 24 hours to reconsider. After that, we will take what we want from your wreckage. The communication ended. On the bridge of the Sovereign's Wrath, Kethavar turned to his officers. Prepare the fleet for battle, but be careful not to damage the archive data. We need it intact. Back on the Persistence, the crew continued their frantic work. Mi Young had dark circles under her eyes from staying awake too long. Her hands were cut and burned from handling hot metal and electrical components. How are we doing? Asked Taemin. Almost finished, she said. The kinetic launchers are ready. The EMP generators are installed. And I found something else in the archive. Battle plans that show how small ships can work together to defeat larger ones. What kind of plans? Swarm tactics. If we coordinate with the other human ships, we can attack from multiple directions at once. Their computers won't be able to target all of us effectively. Taemin looked at the tactical display. 3 other ships had agreed to help them. The mining ship Endurance under Captain Bo-Ra Nam, the transport Resilience with Captain Kyung-Soo Lim, and a small freighter called the Defiance. 4 ships against 12, he said. Still bad odds, but not impossible, said Mi Young. The archive data shows that humans have won against worse odds before. As the hours passed, more human ships began appearing on their sensors. Word was spreading through the sector. Some came to help. Others came just to watch. A few brought weapons and supplies. Dad, said Subin, I'm getting messages from human colonies throughout this region. They're all watching what happens here. If we win, it could inspire others to stand up to alien domination. And if we lose, then at least we tried. Sometimes trying is enough, Taemin nodded. Outside the ship's windows, he could see the distant lights of the approaching Dominion fleet. In a few hours, they would find out if human determination was stronger than alien technology. The Persistence hummed with activity as the crew made their final preparations. Mi Young had been awake for 36 hours straight, but her eyes were bright with excitement. She had transformed their old cargo ship into something the galaxy had never seen before. The kinetic launch tubes are ready, she reported to Captain Taemin. I stripped metal plating from the cargo holds and cut it into projectiles. When we fire them through the magnetic accelerators, they'll be moving at 20,000 meters per second. Dongwu tested his weapons panel. The EMP generators are online. 1 pulse should scramble their computers for at least 30 seconds. That's not very long, said Hyojin. It doesn't need to be long, said Mi Young. 30 seconds is enough time to hit them with kinetic rounds before they can raise their shields again. Wonho had left his medical bay to help with the modifications. He was not a warrior, but he understood what was at stake. I've been reading the archive data about human biology. Did you know our ancestors could function under stress levels that would kill most alien species? Our bodies produce chemicals that make us stronger and faster when we're in danger. Adrenaline, said Subin. I can feel it already. Taemin walked through the ship, checking on his crew. The Persistence looked different now. Weapons stuck out from hull openings that used to hold cargo equipment. New armor plating covered the most important systems. Cables and pipes ran along the walls, connecting the old ship systems to the new weapons. It's not pretty, said Mi Young, but it should work. The archive data shows that human ships don't need to be beautiful. They just need to be effective. On the bridge, Subin coordinated with the other human ships. Captain Bo-Ra Nam of the mining vessel Endurance had armed her ship with industrial mining charges. Captain Kyung-Soo Lim of the transport Resilience had mounted cargo handling equipment as makeshift weapons. The freighter Defiance carried spare parts that could be used as projectiles. It's like the old saying, said Bo-Ra's voice over the communicator. When you don't have a sword, you use a farming tool. When you don't have farming tools, you use rocks. More ships kept arriving. Not all of them could fight, but they brought supplies and spare parts. Some carried families who wanted to witness what might be humanity's last stand in this sector. The presence of civilians made Taemin nervous, but it also strengthened his resolve. Captain, said Hyojin, the Dominion fleet is 6 hours away. They're not hiding anymore. Sensors show 12 ships in attack formation. Taemin studied the tactical display. The Dominion ships were massive compared to the human vessels. Each one was 3 times the size of the Persistence. Their hulls gleamed with advanced armor. Energy weapons glowed along their sides. Mi Young, show me those battle plans again. She brought up the ancient tactical data on the main screen. The key is not to fight them directly. We use hit-and-run tactics. Strike fast, then move before they can respond. The archive shows that human ships are more maneuverable than alien vessels. Why is that? Because we're willing to take risks they won't take. Their computers calculate safe maneuvers. Human pilots make crazy maneuvers that no computer would ever recommend. Jae-ho Shin, their young pilot, grinned. He was only 22 years old, but he had been flying ships since he was 16. I can make this old ship dance, Captain. Just tell me where you want to go. The archive also shows something else important, continued Mi-young. Alien species tend to rely too much on their technology. When their computers fail, they don't know what to do. Humans learn to use manual backup systems for everything. Wonho had been quiet, but now he spoke up. I've been thinking about what makes humans different. Other species evolve on safe worlds with stable environments. Earth was dangerous. Humans had to survive ice ages, predators, diseases, natural disasters. We learned to adapt quickly or die. That's why the archive talks about human unpredictability, said Mi-young. Aliens fight according to logical patterns. Humans fight according to whatever works. As the hours passed, the crew made their final checks. Taemin found himself thinking about his daughter Subin. She was young and smart with her whole life ahead of her. But she had chosen to stay and fight instead of evacuating with the civilian ships. Dad, she said, as if reading his thoughts. I know what you're thinking, but this is bigger than just us. If we run now, humans will keep running forever. Sometimes you have to take a stand. I just wish the stand didn't have to be taken by my daughter. Who else is going to take it? The politicians who signed treaties giving away our colonies? The corporate executives who trade with species that consider us inferior? No, Dad. It has to be people like us. Regular people who refuse to give up. 3 hours before the battle, Taemin called his crew together one last time. They stood in the cargo hold, surrounded by the weapons and equipment they had built from scraps and determination. I won't lie to you, he said. The odds are terrible. We're probably all going to die. But the archive data shows that our ancestors faced the same odds and found a way to win. They had something their enemies didn't understand. They had the human spirit. What is the human spirit? Asked Wonho. It's the thing that makes us keep fighting when any rational being would surrender. It's the thing that makes us jury-rig solutions from spare parts and hope. It's the thing that makes us protect each other even when we're outgunned and outnumbered. Mi-young held up a metal plate that had been part of the ship's hull. This used to protect cargo. Now it's going to punch through alien armor. That's the human spirit right there. We take whatever we have and make it into whatever we need. Dongwu checked his sidearm one more time. The archive says human soldiers never gave up, even when their situation looked hopeless. They found ways to keep fighting with broken equipment and empty ammunition. Because humans are too stubborn to know when they're beaten, said Jae-ho with a laugh. 1 hour before the battle, Admiral Kethavar sent another message. His image appeared on the screen, but now he looked puzzled instead of contemptuous. Human Captain, our sensors detect that you have made modifications to your vessel. This is unexpected, but it changes nothing. You still face 12 ships with weapons far superior to anything you possess. Taemin faced the camera with a calm expression. Admiral, you're right about our weapons. You're right about our technology, but you're wrong about one thing. You think this fight is about technology? It's not. It's about will. Will cannot stop plasma cannons, maybe not. But Will can find ways around plasma cannons. Will can turn cargo equipment into weapons. Will can make 4 ships fight like 40. Kethavar's 3 eyes showed confusion. You are being irrational. Surrender now, and some of you may survive. Admiral, let me ask you something. In all your battles, have you ever fought an enemy that refused to be logical? Have you ever faced ships that kept attacking even after they should have been destroyed? No species is that foolish. Then you've never fought humans before. Taemin smiled grimly. You're about to learn why the galaxy should never underestimate the species that evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. The communication ended. On his bridge, Kethavar turned to his weapons officer. Target their engines first. Once they cannot maneuver, they will be forced to surrender. Admiral, said his tactical officer, our computers are having difficulty predicting their behavior patterns. Their ship modifications do not follow any known configuration. It does not matter. 12 ships against 4. Victory is certain. But as Kethavar looked at the human vessels on his screen, he felt something he had not experienced in many years. Uncertainty. The humans were not behaving as expected. They should have run. They should have surrendered. Instead, they were preparing to fight, and something in their modified ship suggested they might actually have a plan. The old cargo ship Persistence drifted through the dark space between stars. Its hull was covered in patches and rust spots. Wires hung loose from broken panels. The ship looked ready to fall apart at any moment. But Captain Taemin Park knew better. He had been flying this ship for 20 years. It was ugly, but it was tough. Taemin sat in his captain's chair and watched the stars. His weathered face showed many years of hard work in space. Gray hair fell across his forehead. He wore a simple blue uniform that had seen better days. The bridge around him was old and cramped. Screens flickered. Buttons stuck when pressed. But everything worked well enough. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Hee-jin Choi from the navigation station. She was young, maybe 25 years old, with short black hair and quick fingers that danced across her control panel. "There's a signal coming from the asteroid field ahead." Taemin turned to look at her screen. "What kind of signal?" "It's old. Really old. Sounds like a distress call, but the frequency is wrong. It's using codes from the Earth Defense Wars." Mi-young Kim looked up from her engineering station. She was in her 30s, tall and thin, with oil stains on her work clothes. Her hands were always dirty from fixing the ship's old systems. "Captain, those wars ended 200 years ago. No one uses those codes anymore." Dongwoo Lee checked his weapons panel. He was a big man with strong arms and a serious face. His job was to protect the ship, though their weapons were old and weak. "Could be a trap, Captain. Pirates sometimes use old signals to trick ships." Taemin thought for a moment. The Persistence was a salvage ship. They made money by finding old wrecks and abandoned stations. Most of the time, they found nothing valuable. But sometimes they got lucky, and the signal felt different. "Take us closer, Hee-jin, but slowly. Dongwoo, keep our weapons ready just in case." The ship moved forward into the asteroid field. Rocks floated past the windows like sleeping giants. Some were as big as buildings. Others were tiny pieces of dust. The Persistence moved carefully between them, following the old signal. "There," said Hye-jin, pointing at her screen. "It's coming from that big asteroid. But Captain, it's not natural. Someone built something inside it." Taemin stood up and walked to the front window. The asteroid was huge, gray, and pitted with craters. But Hye-jin was right. Part of it was too smooth, too regular. Metal gleamed where rock should be. "It's a hidden station," said Mi-young with excitement. "Someone carved it right into the asteroid. You can barely see it from outside." "Scanning now," said Dongwoo. "I'm reading power sources inside. Very faint, but something is still running after all these years." Taemin felt his heart beat faster. Hidden stations from the old wars sometimes had valuable things inside. Technology, weapons, even historical records that collectors would pay good money for. But they could also be dangerous. "Any signs of life?" he asked. "No, Captain. Whatever's in there, it's been empty for a very long time." "All right, we're going aboard. Mi-young, grab your tools. Dongwoo, bring your sidearm. Hye-jin, keep the ship ready to run if we need to." They put on their spacesuits and crossed to the hidden station through an old airlock. Inside, emergency lights cast red shadows on metal walls. The air was stale but breathable. Their footsteps echoed in the empty corridors. "This place is ancient," said Mi-young, running her hand along the wall. "Look at this construction. They built it to last." They found the main computer room deep inside the station. Banks of old machines lined the walls. Most were dark, but some still showed blinking lights. Mi-young connected her portable computer to the main system. "Incredible," she whispered as data flowed across her screen. "Captain, this isn't just any old station. It's a military archive. Top secret. They hid all kinds of research here during the Earth Defense Wars." Taemin looked over her shoulder. "What kind of research?" "Weapons technology, ship designs, battle tactics. Things the Earth military developed to fight alien invaders. But these aliens, I've never heard of them. The records call them the Velkari hegemony." Dongwoo frowned. "Never heard that name either." "What happened to them?" "According to this, humans won the war. But it was close. Really close. The aliens had better technology, but humans found ways to beat them anyway." Mi-young's fingers moved quickly across her keyboard. "Captain, some of this technology is amazing. They figured out how to punch through energy shields, how to jam advanced sensors, how to turn basic human tech into weapons that could hurt ships much more advanced than ours. Can you copy it?" "Already doing it." "But Captain, this is big. Really big. If this information got out, it could change everything. Humans have been getting pushed around by other species for decades. They all think we're primitive. But this proves our ancestors knew how to fight advanced aliens and win." Suddenly, Hye-jin's voice crackled through their communicators. "Captain, you need to get back here now. I'm picking up ships on long-range sensors, big ones, and they're not human. Taemin and his crew ran back to the Persistence. On the bridge, Hye-jin showed them her readings. 12 large ships were moving toward their position. Their design was sleek and advanced, nothing like human vessels. "They're still far away, but coming fast," said Hye-jin. "At their speed, they'll be here in 2 days." "Can you identify them?" asked Taemin. "Working on it. The computer is comparing their signatures to known species." A moment later, the screen showed a match. Valerian Dominion. They're a military alliance. Very powerful. Very aggressive. Mi-young looked at the data she had copied from the station. "Captain, this is strange. The Velkari hegemony from the old records. The Valerian Dominion now. The names are very similar. You think they're the same species? Maybe, or maybe related. Either way, they probably don't want us to have this information." Taemin stared at the approaching ships on the screen. The Persistence was just one old cargo vessel. Those 12 ships could destroy them easily, but something in the archived data made him think. His ancestors had faced impossible odds too, and they had found a way to win. "We're not running," he said quietly. His crew stared at him. "Captain," said Dongwu, "you heard me. We're not running." Mi-young, study that data, all of it. Find everything our ancestors learned about fighting advanced aliens. We've got 2 days to figure out how to use it. "Captain, that's crazy," said Hye-jin. "We can't fight 12 warships." Taemin smiled grimly. "Our ancestors thought the same thing, but they were wrong. And so are we."